Hi, everyone, and welcome to Able. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Ben Lee, who's the head of data and AI at Bidwells. Bidwells is a leading property consultancy business founded way back in 1893. And Ben has been instrumental in bringing some really interesting new technologies into obviously what is quite a well-established and traditional business. So, Ben, really interested to hear about your journey and how you've gone about bringing AI into a business like Bidwells, and in particular your background. So you don't have the standard background I suggest for someone working in AI. Your
Right.
job, started a career as a journalist.
Exactly. Yeah. That's always the first question people ask me. They think, how the hell did you get into a job like this with a background like that? But to me, it seems very logical. I mean, I was a journalist 25 years ago now. And then after that, I've been in communications, but always in real estate, always worked for real estate companies. Bidwells were they were a competitor, but I knew Bidwells for a long time before I joined. I joined as, a communications manager 9 years ago. But technology's always been my passion. I've worked in a very traditional sector. Real estate is very, very traditional. We're
Yeah,
technology laggards, and it's a face-to-face business. It's a people business. Professional services is all about relationships. So that's not going to change anytime soon. However, I've seen the pace of technology quicken over the course of my career. So I was writing about Facebook when it first found its way into Cambridge University all those years ago. So I saw how much it changed the newspaper industry, and I could see how much it was changing real estate. And when I joined Bidwells, we were still it was quite a nascent sort of technology. Artificial intelligence was quite a nascent technology. But about 3 or 4 years ago, I first started to see how it was impacting the role I was in. So I was in a marketing team, and we were using what was ChatGPT 2 at the time in a very early product called Java. It's called Jasper now, a marketing product. And I could see the writing was on the wall for my job immediately. And you could see
right.
just how impactful this technology was going to be, and immediately usable in the way that lots of other, the metaverse and cryptocurrency, blockchain technology was a solution looking for a problem, wasn't it? But I could see immediately how generative AI could solve a lot of the problems that our team was having. So
Yeah,
I kind of appointed myself head of AI from that moment on, really. I was talking to the business about it about 9 months before ChatGPT came around. So when it did, everyone thought I could see the future, and that actually got very excited about it, and kind of, I guess, gave me the role and the remit within my team to see where it could take us. So that's where it all started, really.
and did you have a sort of technical background prior to that, or were you educating yourself as you went? How did
I
you
mean,
tackle that?
I'm a very curious soul. Journalists have to be very curious, but I'm always curious. I'm always keeping abreast of kind of what's new. That's part of my role for the business before this one. But I think the impact that this technology is having on all sectors has meant that we've all had to become very, very curious, I think, very, very quickly.
Yeah,
And I think the barriers to entry have obviously dropped considerably for people. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. I think that, I know enough about how the technology works to be dangerous, but at the same time that I was appointed because I understood the sector, the business, the people in our business super well. So they could have gone out and got a machine learning expert who could train a data set with his eyes closed in his sleep, but you'd have had nothing to apply it to at the time. What they really needed was someone who understood the operations of the business, who could translate that. And to me, we
yeah.
can get into this, but to me, you know, it's all about translation, and I kind of operate as a translation between the business users and the technology team that I'm in.
Bidwells has publicly stated some pretty ambitious goals around doubling revenue by, I think, 2030, without without any headcount increases, or at least
That's the
proportional
stated
headcount
goal, isn't it? Yeah, you
increases.
got to aim for the moon, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty bold stuff. Wondering where you see that actually happening within the business. Where does that kind of capacity start to become apparent, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first thing to say, AI is not going to get us there. That's not that productivity gains are going to be incremental. We're not
Yeah,
certainly under any illusions that by, adopting a few AI tools, we're suddenly going to be able to double the size of the business. That's a growth strategy, and there's going to be many, many different parts of that will hopefully come together to make that happen. And, that's going to be led by our people. But I
yeah,
think the reason we stated it in that way, and the reason that we're thinking of AI in this way, all technology really is, how can we enable our best people to do more so they can go out and grow the business? And how can we do things in a way we haven't done before to maximize the growth of the business? The alternative to that is obviously to maintain the size of the business, but to cut costs. So I think by stating that and having everything we do rowing behind that gives people in the business a clear idea of what we're using technology for. So yeah, you have to be ambitious. And if you get halfway there, then we've done well, haven't we?
Yeah, 100%. So it's about framing that message for the internal audience as well as obviously the external audience. So it's how people are enabled further rather than being replaced, right? I guess which is the fear that's definitely out there in some areas anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those sort of things, they do matter. They do matter. I think that if you're not clear about what technology means to your business, then people don't quite know how to engage with it and quite how to think about it themselves. And I think you do have to be very clear. And the AI policy we've got and the guidance we give people is aligned with that. But, you have to have the leadership of your business explaining what it means so that everyone else can work out what it means to them.
Yeah. And you've talked about I think you have a sort of tech and innovation committee within the business and how that focuses on sort of problem definition and working out where improvements can be made rather than being tech first. So workflow first rather than tech first.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in terms of how that works in practice and what kind of gets through that lens and perhaps stuff that you think you should do that doesn't get through that lens.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people will have formed AI councils in the last couple of years, which is great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think having a place where you can organize innovation, and it's kind of a bit of an oxymoron there, but organize innovation is important. People need to know the channels that they have to go through to be able to get support or funding or backing or whatever it is they need. Making that clear is super important. The reason we've gone for a technology and innovation committee is because AI is, quite often not the answer to the team's problem. To shift the thinking of people in our teams around, let's put the technology to one side, let's put the AI to one side for a second. What problem are you trying to solve here, or what is your goal? What problem, if we remove it, will enable us to meet that stated goal of doubling the size of your business? And how well aligned is the removal a problem with the strategy? So that's that helps to triage some ideas quite quickly, but it also encourages people to put forward ideas and know where they go and know how to get support. So that committee is representative. We've got 10 departments, and I think what we'd had when I first joined the business 9 years ago would be lots of departments doing their own due diligence on technology, working out and solving their own problems in a more isolated way, and then what you end up with then is you end up with duplication, or you end up with people not quite finding the right software solution and ending up with a system they don't really, they're not getting value from. We've all been there. And I think, the reason this committee's worked the last 2 or 3 years is because it helps people in teams to see what's going on in other parts of the business and realize that they can perhaps leverage something that's going on over here with what they're doing. And so it's just, it's just good business sense, but at the same time, it spurs innovation because you can see that actually a lot of people are all trying to solve the same problem. And they're the ones we then tend to gravitate and support.
So that sounds like on one hand, a very bottom up process where you've got different parts of the business bringing in different ideas. There may be commonalities between those, but how does that sort of work in practice with what's a pretty big business, 500 plus employees, I think.
Yeah.
Where you've got, all sorts of different ideas coming in, and, no doubt the advocates of those ideas are pretty keen that they're the ones that are taken forward. So how do you kind of control that and get things that are actually implementable across the business?
Yeah, I mean,
at scale.
That's the biggest challenge, right? And in mid-market companies, certainly professional services businesses, you've got partners and you've got teams who are better than others at making their voice heard, and you've got people who are more influential than others. But some of the best ideas often come from parts of the business that don't often get heard. We're also the number one advisor to the science and technology sector, and what we hear from our clients all the time is that when you bring together two teams from completely different disciplines, that's where you get the best ideas. Yeah. So we try and live a little bit by that. But I think in the end, that's where my role and others in my team, the role that we fulfill is that time-consuming part of technology, which is talking to people about what they're trying to do and helping them to understand what the right solution might be, and helping them to understand that actually, let's reframe that a little bit and think about it a slightly different way. That is that's not a technology problem. That's a culture. That's a stakeholder management problem. And actually that is the stickiest bit often. And I think that technology can't replace that. We can triage things using efficient systems, but we spend a lot of time in our team understanding people's problems and working through with them and defining the requirements really, really clearly. And so by doing that, you can then make a really strong business case as to why a particular thing is either a good or a bad idea. So all of that effort you put into that through the structures we've got actually enables the build and the deployment of things to be much, much smoother. So I think that is so important to think about why you're doing these things rather than just sort of cracking on with them.
And do you find that the sort of the ideas that bubble up from the bottom up, how often are they things that are applicable or can be made applicable across the entire organisation? Or are you still finding yourselves doing things in sort of pockets or for several parts, but perhaps not all of the organisation? How often do you get something that works across everything?
That's a good question. Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, we've got kind of 4 buckets for the projects that we look at. And some of them are, self-serve projects. People, with the right AI tools can solve their problem themselves pretty easily with a bit of curiosity, bit of support from us, and the right license. There are some that might then actually require a bit more support. They might need some more technical expertise. So we might apply somebody in our team to help with that. They might have a data problem they need solving, or they might need a bit more technical expertise to build something. Then it gets to a point where you might need to go and buy a solution, something that is, has to be procured, and we need to go through a detailed requirements gathering exercise there and work out whether we need to buy something or whether we can build it ourselves. And then you've got the enterprise-wide challenges, problems, projects, which are, that then becomes something very different. But I think to your point about use cases, I mean, I think real estate is a very traditional, repeatable business. There are a lot of things that companies are now finding are done very, very formulaically. The way the meetings are run, the way that leases are reviewed, the way that scoping reports are written, the way that site appraisals are carried out, the way that planning appraisals are pulled together, the way that project management projects are reviewed by project managers and managed on behalf of clients. There's a whole layer of things which are effectively document generation exercises with some orchestration of data and sometimes with some AI to help deliver kind of, I guess, the kind of work which clients expect to be done in a particular way and delivered in a certain timescale. They're the kind of things which translate across all 10 departments. But I think it's the middle layer where the reason our clients are paying us is because we've got a very specific way of working with them or a very specific knowledge of the markets we're in. We're in Cambridge, Oxford, and Golden Triangle. Often that's not highly repeatable work. They want things that they want advice and they want support that is very tailored to them. So, there are processes and ways of working that will slot into that in a more modular way. The things which translate across the whole business are definitely what you call it. They're the quick wins, the things that you can build a tool, make it available, and then everybody can find a really good use for it.
And you mentioned sort of potentially procuring platforms, procuring solutions. Do you have a sort of inbuilt preference? Would you rather build or would you rather buy, or are you genuinely agnostic on something like that?
Our default position is to build because. We've got our technology team is as big as our IT team, and our IT director reports into our head of technology, director of technology and innovation. So we will always feel that we've got the capability in our team to build certainly a lot of the tools that I talked about, which can be built and deployed quite quickly. I guess in the end, it comes down to resources. We'd love twice as many bodies, twice as many people in the team, wouldn't everyone?
Yeah.
So there comes a point where you have to prioritize and think, well, actually, we could build that, but actually there's a solution that we found that fits our requirements very well. And it's probably, we're going to get value from it. We've identified that we're going to use a lot of the features. And so actually, do you know what? It's going to cost us the same. Let's just go and buy it and focus our in-house resources on something which we can't find out there, which we can't go and buy. So it's portfolio management. I mean, you have to making sure that the portfolio of projects we've got is distributed continuously in the right way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Absolutely. So, I understand you recently ran a hackathon with 40 or so university students. You gave
really
them
smart students from some of London's best sort of real estate unis. I really, really impressed with the people who joined.
And what was impressive about the people that did best in that? Were there sort of things that you can take away and learn for Bidwell's approach to stuff that you kind of found from that process?
Well, I mean, that was the whole point, really. Yeah, I mean, these guys are coming out of uni. Most of them are still at uni, actually. One or two coming out of their universities, and so they have experience of. Some of them were studying machine learning. Some of them were studying real estate. Some of them were studying geography. There's a whole mix, and they were in teams. So they had some technical people, and then they had some real estate students.
Okay.
What we wanted to do was just give them a problem which we've been thinking about, but give it to a group of people who have no preconceived ideas about how it might be solved. And it was a real problem, something which our planning department had told us in the technology team would be really valuable if they managed to solve it.
Yeah.
And we gave them quite a heavy brief before they joined. So before they joined the event, so they had a good understanding of the planning sector, of what we were trying to achieve. Because we thought, let's help them as much as we can, so that we can, it's a valuable exercise for everyone. And then they all came together, and we had a amazing building given to us for the day by British Land, one of our biggest clients. Really amazing space. So it had the energy you need from one of those sorts of events. What we found is the teams that won, and the winners are coming in to do some more work with us, some work experience with us. The teams that won, they didn't come up with a kind of it wasn't always their use of technology. One of them did train their own model around but the ones that were the most successful, the ones that really spent time understanding what we were trying to achieve, what the problem was, and spent a lot of time asking questions of the planners that are at the event, and really kind of taking as much time as possible up front before they went away and chose the right technology. And they demoed some stuff for us, and that was good too, but they'd really understood the problem well. So they were we were impressed with that more than anything else, because I think it is quite easy sometimes, especially with this, to jump straight to, well, let's do this really spectacular machine learning exercise, when actually the winners didn't really need to do that.
So it's critical thinking rather than the tech being the thing that comes first, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you hear that a lot. I think the people I really listen to in all of this are the people that aren't talking about technology, ones that are talking about their disciplines and thinking about, let's just all assume that the technology is going to be able to, do lots of things that we can do in the future. Yeah. And they're thinking about, well, what's going to be left? What are we going to do? And that has to be understanding your domain, your discipline, your sector, your business super, super well, and being able to explain that either to other people, team who are developing solutions, or even explain it directly to the technology itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for our audience who are in the middle of trying to figure out a lot of this stuff themselves, you've sort of said AI is the easy bit. It's getting it to work across a large organization and really digging into those processes and workflows. Is there something else or one of those things that's sort of the biggest thing that you would say to people, you're probably missing this, or you're underestimating the importance of this? Could you put your finger on one thing?
I mean, I think I probably already have. I mean, defining the problem and being clear why you're doing something is, that's vital. But I think that, if you take prompt engineering as a discipline, if it is a discipline, that's probably going to be less important as well. But I think prompt engineering has been important, and I think the reason it's become important is because people realize that without being super clear with a large language model or with a platform, with a tool, exactly what you want your output or your the output to be, or what the steps that you want this technology to take in order to achieve that output. If you're not super clear and you don't understand yourself the steps that are taken and what good looks like, and you don't understand the thought process or the judgments that are made whilst doing that task, then of course AI is not going to be able to do the job in the way you want. And I think that, yes, the models are catching up and working things out for themselves without us needing to tell them. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that now. You can ask for, in very simple terms now, for something to be done with the Anthropic models. And, the models have improved so much that you will get an excellent result because the model will work out for itself. But that's not going to be a differentiator in the next few years, is it? If their models can all do excellent things without any guidance, then, you can't compete with that. I think it's so important for everyone to be thinking about what is it that we do in our business or in our team, or that I do, that is different to my competitors, and let's build that into whatever tool or whatever task we're working on, and then we can use AI to then help us to leverage that expertise.
Yeah.
And And I think that step is not just smart, but it's going to be vital, I think, to maintain a
Yeah.
competitive advantage.
And it's the easy one to overlook, and it's the easy one. It's the easy thing is to just jump straight into the tool and the
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
I'm interested in terms of kind of governance for you and for Bidwells. It's obviously, as I said at the start, a long established business dealing with sensitive data that you have to be no doubt very careful where that data. Because I
Yeah.
just wonder how you kind of balance that with the pace of change that you're seeing and that you're trying to implement in the business, and how that kind of governance process works for you, and if it's has it killed stuff that you wanted to do? Are there insights there that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having an IT and a technology team working together really closely is so important. I think if you know the guys in our IT team, as much as anyone else, are learning quickly how to ensure the right governance around agents, around Copilot Studio, around all of the new third-party tools that people are talking to us about. And I think Microsoft themselves, I said to you before we came on, I was at an event yesterday at the Excel Center where Microsoft were talking about the latest developments in Copilot Studio and Foundry, and they're talking about how Power Apps can help, connect together some of these new tools. And Microsoft are now making it, I wouldn't say easy because Microsoft never make anything that easy, but they're making it simpler for security managers, IT directors to get their heads around, okay, what does this look like in 4 or 5 years? Our apps enabled anyone to build an app when they first came out, and you ended up with chaotic dashboards or no dashboards at all. No one quite knew where everything was. Well, we're going to get that again soon as more and more companies build more and more assistants, agents, workflows, all these different things which these companies are chucking at the IT directors and the IT team. And we use the Microsoft stack that we've had for 20 years, and we will continue to use that to deploy Copilots, to deploy agents, deploy workflows in the same way we always have. And we can build things quickly with a third-party tool, perhaps in a very controlled way, prove it works. Sometimes you can move more quickly with tools that aren't native to Microsoft. But if we're going to, when we deploy anything across to our whole business, it has to be in the places where people are already working, not just so that people adopt it, but so we've got the comfort, and our clients have all got the comfort that their data is being housed in the UK in the places we've always housed it, and so they feel comfortable with that too. Because there'd be plenty of people we couldn't work for if we didn't do that. But
Yeah.
I think my final point, what I was trying to say about the event yesterday, was that I can see now how Microsoft are making it, a big play that they're able to offer everybody what I've just described to you, but they're also making it easier to manage all of these things as well,
Yeah.
which I think they didn't have a year ago, which made it frustrating for people. And it did slow things down because you could build something very quickly in a chatbot, or you could build something very quickly with an automation tool, and you could do it in an afternoon. You could prove the value of something in a couple of hours or an afternoon. Well, you still couldn't do that quite so quickly in some of the tools that Microsoft are providing. But those tools now look and feel, as they always do, feel a lot more like their competitors now, and they're starting to help people move much more quickly. You can build a Copilot now in a couple of hours in a way you couldn't a year ago.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Fantastic, Ben. Thank you. Just one final question for me, if that's okay. If you could go back to day one when you gave yourself the job of head of data and AI, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself then if you could look back?
Question. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised at how slow adoption's been. I thought there'd be lots of
Okay.
people like me spending time learning, teaching themselves how to use the new platforms and tools, getting excited by their potential. I think I would say to myself now, actually, it's going to be a bit slower than you thought. And that would have probably disappointed me at the time. But I think it's been good in a lot of ways, because it's meant that you can be more strategic and more thoughtful about why we're doing things. I think, there was initial excitement where people just wanted to do stuff, but I think it's not settling down. The pace of technology is still going super quickly, and it's way ahead of the way people are using it.
Yeah.
I think I would say at the beginning, patience is important to think about what you're doing. But I think what I would also to do now, which we've done, more recently, is have the leaders in the business be really clear that AI is not really an optional activity anymore. And
Yeah.
we could have said that a bit earlier, because it's been quite clear for a while that it's not going anywhere. But everybody in our business now has a stated performance objective to identify an area of their work which could be supported by AI. Now, it's not a kind of, if you don't do it, you're fired situation, but it's a explicit request that everybody in the business needs to think about. How can we use AI, or it might be another technology? How can we use technology to do our job better? Now, it could be as small as summarizing a document by using Copilot. That's just getting people thinking. Or it could be, I'm going to build something which is going to deliver a new service for my clients. So everyone interprets that in a different way, but I think that just solidifies again that this is going to be part of the way everybody works, and so it is important that everybody thinks about that.
And do you have a view on why the sort of adoption process that you mentioned has been slower than you anticipated? Is that and do you see that continuing?
There's a lot of reasons. Everyone feels differently about the way they work and about technology. I wouldn't blame anyone for feeling anything. We're all different. I was excited by it. Other people haven't got the time for it. They're thinking about the job that they love and doing it in the way they always have, and that's fine too. Those people are the experts I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're going to be as valuable as anyone who's great at using technology. I mean, I think that we're all just just a bit stuck in their ways. We're human beings. You get used to the way of working, and not everybody follows the same people on
LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn, or follows the same people on X, do they? That's the way the world is. Everybody sort of lives in a bit of an echo chamber. My echo chamber is obviously people implementing technology into professional services businesses. That's what I do. But I think, I think people are starting. I can see it changing. I think, as I said, the technology is moving even faster in 26 than it was last year, and I think there will be another moment at some point this year where people are as shocked, I guess, at the impact of the technology as they were when they first saw ChatGPT. I think that the software companies are now writing good amounts of code using AI and using using Copilots, and I think that other sectors are going to start seeing an impact in that way too. But I think when people start seeing that, real world things that used to be done by people, software engineers have always operated in the shadows a little bit, haven't they? But I think when products have come out that can deliver the kind of things that used to take a team of 4 or 5 professional people, then, you might see another step change.
And do you think it'll be that sort of evolution, continued evolution of LLMs, or do you see agentic as being perhaps the next tipping point where people start to go, wow, but this is now possible?
I mean, I think that's what I'm talking about with the start of this year. There's been 2 or 3 things which have been where people have started to see, actually, this is less about talking to a chatbot now, and more about getting AI to do things and actually being able to rely on the things that they're doing. I see it in my own personal life. The way I use AI in my personal life is a million miles ahead the way I use it at work, because I've got my own setup, and I can do things using Claude Code or using other platforms now, which with the right time spent on creating the right setup and giving whatever tool you're using, Codex or Code Claude, access to it all. You can see now just how much leverage you can get from that. You can get AI to do stuff while you're not around now, and that creates some leverage that wasn't there. When you're talking to a chatbot, you've got to be there to have it work. But when you've got 15 agents doing stuff for you 24 hours a day, that creates more leverage. Now, we won't be doing that in our business for a little while yet, but it is possible now. You're seeing people doing it, and that will have a knock-on effect, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Thank you so much. We're over time. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Really, really insightful. I really appreciate you taking the time. And it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for saying so, Richard. Yeah, thanks for
And
the invite.
I hope